You said case and then the K?
Correct. Everyone ready?
Just 1 second. Alright, go ahead.
Alright. First, they say that our relationship to death is one that hides it, but we want to be aware of death. We want to realize that death is an inevitability of life, and that is not something that we can look at, that we can always realize that we are perpetually dying. We are not trying to extend the illusion of continuity, but to realize that we are no longer our former selves, but also our shamanism advocacy is one that solves this, because the act of taking peyote is one that is experience. We are embracing the experience of death, which allows for the solvency of the impact of this argument. Then they say that it's about embracing freedom, and that the authentic relationship devalues the life, but shamanism evidence, shamanism arguments solve this, because when you take the hallucinogenic substances, it breaks down your ego and allows you to change your relationship to death. It's not one that looks for a more authentic one, but it makes you realize that the life that you are living is one that increases the value and allows you to be happy with your experiences, which means that we solve back this argument. Let's go to the K. The top of the framing argument is the unanswered question of solvency argument on the alternative. They are in a clear double bind. Either it is a non-unique disad that they are unable to resolve because they can't solve their impacts, or the link turn solves the K. Their alternative is specifically articulated as still a commodification of the ballot. They say that voting negative is something that is able to solve the impacts of neoliberalism, which means that they're putting you in a position of political thought, which is using the same rhetoric of the self-help, that the magical thought they're creating. Their gun and cloud evidence is actually very descriptive of the type of communicative acts that are intended to say that they solve for a certain amount of impacts. Insofar as they read an extinction scenario, that means they're unable to resolve that extinction scenario, which ultimately dooms the alternative solvency, which makes it a non-unique disad because they can't solve it. Or extend our link turn by the Bay evidence says that shamanism exists outside of the systems. Bay articulates this argument as something that the shamanism exists outside of global capital, because it's not something that can commodify the symbols that exist within it, because it is something that actively goes against the signification that exists in capital through the turning of money into a commodity that relies on symbols. Shamanism is something that breaks away from this because it's reliant on what people of the Western world who exist in capital articulate as a type of magic that is unexplainable. Insofar as that, this means we are non-quantifiable because global capital can't articulate the type of effects that neo-shamanism has on the people, but also it means that we are a break away from neoliberalism, because by endorsing this shamanistic method, we are able to resolve some of the discursive constructions of neoliberalism, because we are in opposition to the continued support of the system. They say that Bay votes neg, but this evidence is in context of legalizing marijuana. It's not specific to the evidence that we're reading, which is about shamanism. You should read our cards after the round. It's very specific to both neoliberalism and shamanism and the app. They say that the George James evidence means that we're entering a political economy that kills the transformation that's possible, but they link to this argument just as much. Their alternative advocacy is something that also enters a political economy that is also probably going to kill their social transformation. They say that it's try or die extinction scenario, but this proves that the alternative can't solve that. They shouldn't be reading these big stick impacts if they actually want to go for this K, because they're never going to be able to solve the impact of extinction, which means there's no impact to the K, and the permutation resolves this, but I'll get to that later. They say we should say the role about is that you should vote for the best idea. This is exactly what is not commodifying a ballot. We're not saying that you need to orient yourself on how you should vote based on a specific political agenda like the one that they're proposing, which means that our role of the ballot is going to be better by their own framework, because we're not advocating through this self-help scenario. The extending Robinson's evidence also is going to be another independent link turn, because it means that we can solve the root cause of cap by changing the way in which we relate to death, even if it only occurs on an individual basis, as in the people in this room. If we change the way in which we see death, then it allows us to resolve the fundamental exclusionary dichotomies that our Baudrillard evidence articulates as structuring part of the way in which we view death as something that is external to us, which allows the capitalist machine to enact exploitation of the workers because it is based on that exclusionary dichotomy. They say that the advocate's commodified by Nike, but the Bay evidence is actually pretty articulated on how we can't be commodified because of the symbols that are associated with shamanism. And no link, but we also aren't presenting the shamanism as something that is fun or requiring people to do it. We are merely advocating that it should be an option that is a good idea. Also, and they say perm to the doesn't tell the K, but go ahead and extend the permutation to both right here. Also extend the multiple signs of resistance is good. They do not have an answer to this argument, which means the permutation is going to be at full solvency because we're able to challenge neoliberalism from both a shamanistic perspective and the perspective that the negative takes, which means that where the permutation gets full solvency. They say perm. They say no plan means no perm, but we our advocacy statement solves this. We are a mixture of the advocacy statement and the alternative, which means that we're able to incorporate the relationship to death along with the shamanism, the embracing of alternative medicine practices that allows for the permutation to function completely. It makes tons of sense. There's no our link turns are strong enough to resolve the residual links. That would be a reason. There would be something that would say, don't do the perm, but our link turns are reasons that the perm actually solve better. The net benefit to the perm is the breaking away from the Western modes of knowledge and the all new forms of relationship to death, which are massive net benefits that the alternative can't access. It means we have the most solvency and the biggest impacts.